Hey everybody, first of all, thank you very much for listening to this podcast, but this is post-podcast Martin here from the Hobby Lodge. Just to give you a heads up that during this podcast we will speak about the new movie Gladiator 2, and during that discussion we will obviously come across some minor spoilers. So if you want to go into the movie spoiler free, absolutely, I recommend you do. Then skip that part of the podcast. But if you don't mind, and maybe you've already read some reviews, read some parts about the movie, then feel free to listen to that section of the podcast. And like I say, there are some minor spoilers, not full, but minor spoilers during that review. All right, thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the podcast. Hello everybody, welcome to episode 2 of The Nerd, The Chef and The Hobby Lodge. And once again, I am joined by my two co-hosts, Nerdy Geezer and Retro Chef. So I'm going to come to you first, Lee, Nerdy Geezer. Hello mate, how are you doing?
Hello. Tired. That's probably the best way to describe how I'm doing right now. As you guys know, I've had all sorts of issues with my boiler, as well as trying to work 12-hour shifts. Yeah, really not good. So, but I'm glad to be here. If I'm honest, this is probably what's going to keep me awake for the next few hours.
Excellent. So, taking one for the team, being here for us. Thank you very much for that.
I enjoy it. I enjoy it, mate. So, yeah.
Good stuff. Right, Chef, how are you doing, my friend?
I just want to put onto record that regardless of Lee's hours of sleep, he looks great. I just want to tell you, because you ain't going to see it, but I'm telling you now, whew, beautiful man. No, we're all good. We're all good. Busy, obviously coming around to Christmas, but all good, sir. All good. Looking forward to the discussions we have for today.
Yes, and of course, obviously, this is episode 2. So episode 1, I think, went down pretty well. I think we had a quite good bunch of people coming and listening. There's some nice feedback from people. So hopefully, we can do the difficult second album and do a good showing on this episode, and hopefully can build up a bit more of an audience, which would be really fantastic. So yeah, as before, we've all kind of got some topics we want to talk about. We're going to go around the room, talk about those topics, and yeah, we may go off tangent, but I'll try and keep us on track as best I can. Try and keep us to about that hour long if we can do it, but we may run over a little bit given we've all got things to talk about. So I'm going to come to you first, Lee, because I went to Chef last time, so I'm going to come to you first. What is your first topic you'd like to sort of talk about?
Well, before I get into my first topic, I just want to point out that some sequels were successful. Empire Strikes Back's a great film, so
it's very true. Will this episode surpass the first? Will this? Who knows? Who knows?
Terminator 2, that was better as well. So yeah. It does happen.
Well, that doesn't say much for our third episode though, because I don't know if any threequels were any good.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Jaws 3, Terminator 3. Yeah, no, you make a valid point. Jurassic Park 3, need I go on? Like, yeah.
It's been great doing this, guys. If this is the last one, I've enjoyed it immensely up to today.
Yeah. Maybe skip the third episode, come back for the reboot.
Right, okay, let's get into my first topic then. So, right, okay, originally I wanted to talk about a game, but obviously because of what's been going on recently, I thought, right, well, I just didn't have time to review this game. So I've decided to go with a topic that I did a video on recently. You guys would be aware of that because you would have seen it. But of course, unlike doing this, when you do a video, you don't really get anyone else's points of view other than in the comments. So I thought, why not mention it on here and get used to's takes on it? And that is retro consoles. Do they have a place? Do we need them these days? Obviously, there's a release of the HD version of the N64. In fact, I say HD, it's 4K if I remember right, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, and of course, it uses proper original cartridges. It does emulate, obviously, but it is still cartridge. And I would argue that it kind of has a place because it does upscale these graphics, which, let's be honest, can only make the N64 look better these days because it does kind of look pretty atrocious on most modern TVs. But then there's a flip side of it, you know, when you've got things like the new Spectrum that's coming out, or is it out? Yeah. What's the release date on that? It's soon.
I'm waiting for mine to be delivered today, believe it or not.
There you go. So, it wasn't far off then. So, you know, of course, in that case, I mean, you know, do you need that if you got a PC? Not really, because I mean, you can emulate it on your PC. So really, you are just throwing money down the drain in a lot of ways. But you got the plug and play aspect. So there's a yes and no. There's a pro and con to all of this, and I just wanted to get you guys' takes because I kind of get both sides of it. So what do you guys think?
Go on, Chef. Why don't you jump in?
Oh, thank you, Martin. I like playing original hardware where I can. Obviously, I think that the biggest problem is with these newer systems is they have to probably upscale so much to get them so good. Like N64 is atrocious. If you try and play that on a modern TV, it's pretty pants. However, at the same time, these systems are so iconic to different people. I prefer. I don't know if can I say I prefer. I've got a Retron 5. I play a Retron 5. I've got a Retro Freak. I use those systems, but I do enjoy playing the old systems, putting in the Super Nintendo cartridge, playing with that controller, let's say, rather than a wireless controller. And I think that kind of relives my youth and those Friday nights playing GoldenEye, for example, with all my friends, and you're trying to destroy each other on the maps and things. And I don't know. I think they serve a purpose, but there's something that I wouldn't go out my way to get, especially the N64 one. I'm quite happy to play it on an original system. Then I mean I don't know how much the actual system is, to be fair, but I'm happy playing on a normal system rather than a newer one when there's been so many newer updates of different systems to play these on. I prefer the original consoles. I'm a fossil, let's say that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I'm very similarly, and I'm a big guy on the ceremony of it. So I really like, especially when it comes to the more sort of personal computer type stuff like the Commodore 64, the Amiga, those things. The interaction with them is as big a part as the playing of the games. Yeah. So I do have literally to my left here, I've got things like the Amiga Mini, the C64 Mini, and I haven't touched them in years because it feels a bit hollow when you play them. Like, that's my issue. I could fire. I'm the same with emulation on PC, like you said there. I could absolutely fire up an Amiga EAU or whatever it's called to play on there, or C64 emulator or whatever, but again it just doesn't give you the same feels. It doesn't give you the same thing. The bit that obviously for convenience, yes, so I've got a Retron 5 in front of me as well. That's great because when I want to do streaming, when I want to do video capturing, it's a really simple way. The Retron 5 pretty much plays every console of popular console, right? And even with the 3-in-1 adapter you can get for it, means you can also play Game Gear games and Master System games, putting into the Genesis port or the Mega Drive port. So for that reason, you can. I think there's about 8 or 9 different systems you can play on it. So from a capturing point of view, yes, but then I'm doing it for a different purpose. I'm doing it because I'm trying to make a video, or I'm doing it for a live stream rather than for my own personal enjoyment. If I was sitting here and playing, I'd much rather play the Super Nintendo, the actual physical console, or the actual Amiga or the Commodore 64 or whatever it might be, because it is that we all know. I know exactly what it feels like to press the eject button on a Super Nintendo and have the cartridge slightly jump out to the right. Like it's that kind of like you know that feeling. You know what it's like, and you know exactly the sound it makes when you do it. Getting those cartridges down, blowing in the cartridge, putting them in, grabbing your pad and playing your game. So it's not just the actual game experience. It's the whole piece, the whole ceremony around doing it. I can see why they exist, and certainly with those, because the N64 one is that company called Analog, isn't it? They did the Analog Pocket and a few others. Right, are they called Analog? It is Analog.
Yes, Analog, yeah.
And they make like premium they think they are. They're boutique products, right? They are I think it's like £300 or something, that N64.
It's $250, I believe.
Right, okay. Of which they'll all be scalped and sold for twice that amount on eBay within a day. So you will,
of course,
yeah, you'll be lucky if you get one for 250. So yeah, and I must admit, I don't know where you guys stand on this, but for me, the N64 was always a terrible machine. Anyway, I was never impressed by it.
It had some good games. I mean, for example, you had was it Rogue Leader or Rogue Squadron, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's good. Rogue Squadron is good.
Shadows of the Empire, another great game. Notice they're both Star Wars games. I've just
Oh,
really. No, it did have some good games, but no,
Yeah.
you are right. Like there were a few terrible filler games as well, weren't there?
Yeah, I mean, I think by that time in my gaming, I'd moved solidly into like PC by that point. I think, so a lot of my game was done on there. I remember playing a lot of. I did have one, and I remember playing just mostly the wrestling games. The wrestling games on there were pretty good.
Yes.
Yeah, I never got sucked into the Mario or the Zelda games, which was obviously the big ticket ones. And GoldenEye, for me, there was better online first person shooters on PC at that point. So I was kind of spoiled by that, like proper LAN gaming with PC. So I think they have a place. I think people will buy them because there are people out there that just like really fancy stuff, like they like having the boutique products. But I don't know if it's worth it for an N64. But for me, it's not just the gaming; it's the ceremony as well. Lee, I'll come back to you, mate, because you've not really had your view. What was your? You've raised the question. Now give us where you stand.
Well, like I say, I kind of see it from both points of view, and like you two, I do use some of these devices. I mean, I emulate on the PC when I'm doing a video because, like you say, it's easier to capture. I mean, you literally just do a screen record, don't you? And I also do have the Retro Trio Plus, which allows me to play SNES, Mega Drive, and NES from all regions, and it puts out an HDMI, it puts that out as an HD signal. So again, that works on a modern TV. So I do see the point of these things. I mean, I own a C64 Maxi. If I'm honest, I've only got the C64 Maxi because I did have a Mini before that, which I got rid of. The reason I wanted the Maxi was because I wanted something that could be used like a Commodore 64 in the fact that it's got a working keyboard and all that, and it would preserve me from killing my Commodore 64 because I want to keep that going as long as possible. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
So this is a thing. I don't really fall on any one side. I kind of see it from both sides. And that was why I decided in the first place to actually put the video out, because it's like, well, if I'm torn, is anybody else?
Yeah.
And so that was why I decided to do the video. And, it did get a lot of people commenting. And yeah, I just thought it'd make a good topic and ask your opinions, because I did wonder what you guys thought. I know with you, Martin, it's a lot about the tactileness. And I agree with that, especially when it comes to the Amiga. I actually say this in my video that, the C64 Mini, I find that I don't really use it that much, whereas a Maxi I probably would, because the Maxi at least gives you the same feel as a proper 500, and I could preserve my 500, which of course I got off of you. So yeah, I do see both sides of it.
Okay. I'll add one more thing to the Amiga. Right, when the Amiga Mini came out, I was really excited about it. The worst thing they did with that Amiga Mini is the tank mouse is about a 70% size, and like your hand. If you've ever used an Amiga tank mouse and you've used it for a certain long period of time, you know what that mouse feels like. You know exactly how it is to use. And I don't understand why they shipped it with a 70% size mouse. Like I just don't get it. Like you can get the Amiga shit, you can get the Amiga tank shells. I've even got a wireless Amiga tank mouse that came from a Kickstarter I did. But with that they shipped, and even the pad. I'm not that fortunately I have any experience with the pad because I never owned an Amiga CD32 when I was young. But even the pad is like a 70% size. It might not be 70, but it's definitely smaller. It's like a reduced down size. And I get it. Maybe it was a packaging thing. Maybe it was a keep the costs down thing. But it really ruins it a little bit because it's almost like you're using a toy rather than the original machine, because you could get away with not the Amiga Mini being like the little thing it is if the actual interface that you're using was original, or at least original size, original feel, and it would have gotten rid of some of that illusion a bit. But the fact that it feels totally different to me, I was like, yeah, it just feels like a toy. I'm not interested. I'd rather fire up my Amiga and use the originals, Yeah.
The only thing I would say on that, though, is although the controller is smaller, it's a hell of a lot better than the original Amiga CD32 controller, in it. Let's be honest, it is it's a million times better. There's no denying it.
Yeah, I was fortunate back in the day. I never had to use one. I was always a joystick or a mouse. I don't think I even knew anyone who had an Amiga pad back in the day. You know, because by the time the CD30, well, I mean the CD32 flopped so hard, it's untrue, isn't it? So I think by the time that came along, a lot of us had moved into PC. You know, the early days of PCs. So yeah.
Oh, and one last thing about that controller, it's good unless you're playing or trying to play Chaos Engine. That's awful for playing that.
Okay. Excellent. Right. Well, that's a good coverage. Yeah, and definitely. I will. Today is Saturday the 23rd. I am awaiting my Spectrum to show up, so I'll definitely talk about it potentially on the next obviously podcast. I can give you guys a bit of insight into it, or if I do a video on it, I'll certainly let you know. But that one, I guess to finish it off, the reason why I picked that one up is because I don't actually own a Spectrum. I'm not a Spectrum guy. It's an inferior machine to the Commodore 64. Let's put that statement out there.
True story.
We all agree that one, right? Just in case anyone's listening. So that one interests me because that is going to be a way for me to check out the Spectrum library, look at the homebrews. Yes, I've got a Harlequin, but I still have to hook it up. I can't use HDMI on it and things like that. So it will be nice to have something that is unfamiliar to me and will allow me to look at the library in those games. So that's kind of why I picked that up. So I'll definitely feed back to you guys what I think about it. Yeah. Okay, great. Chef, I'm going to come to you. What was your sort of first topic of the day?
It's gaming. I want to talk about obviously last pod I was playing Days Gone, which I'm still playing a little bit, but I've gone massively back into Cyberpunk with my PS5 update, which I spoke to yourself about. I've given it a second chance. I want to know what you guys think. Because when it came on the PS4, I got it on release. It was janky as hell. There was guns floating in the air, people floating in the air. There was all sorts of stuff going on. It was crazy, but you could see there's a game there. Obviously, they sold a broken game at the beginning, but there is a game there to play. The storyline is still great. I'm back into it big time. I'm really enjoying it. I think the PS5 update has done it justice. Obviously, I've not played on the PC or on the Xbox. I've not played it. But the PS5 update is great. I'm loving it. I just want to see what you guys think, because it's something that, like Days Gone, I've gone back to it. And there's other games that I'm going to go back to now the PS5 has updated them. So, yeah, I want to know what you guys think about Cyberpunk.
Yeah, cool.
You
want to jump in, Lee?
Oh, I can do. It's hard for me to really have an opinion on this because I never bought it. So the thing is, we get so many broken games, don't we, these days, that it's very rare that I will buy a game when it releases for that very reason. Because number one, within a few months, it drops to, stupid money, don't it? Quite often these games, they drop half price within a couple of months, So it's like, do I really want to pay 50 quid for a game when a couple of months' time it's going to be 25, for example, So there's that. But the biggest problem, like I say, for me, is quite often these games are absolutely broken when you get them. And I don't know what it was with that game, because, looking at it, it gives you Blade Runner vibes, right? And so it should appeal to me 100%, because I love Blade Runner, right? But it didn't. And the only thing I can put it down to is the fact that we've heard it time and time again, haven't we, with these AAA games where they're like, oh, it's going to be the best thing ever. You can do this and this, this and this. And I think the cynical me sitting there going, but will it though? Really? Really, will it? And in some ways, I was probably right to think that, because that's kind of exactly what happened, isn't it? We ended up with a game, like you say, where people are floating, we ended up with a game where it's like, oh, you can do this, 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 and this. And actually you can't do any of it. Like, they was a little bit over ambitious, I think, with a lot of things that they said about it. I don't know if it's just maybe that they was trying to overhype a game that they knew was broken just so they could sell it, or whether they really did have the intention of doing some of these things and just couldn't do it. So, so as a result, I think the cynical me, which I'm kind of glad the cynical me stepped in there and said, no, Lee, don't do it, was a good thing, because, it took long enough to fix it to a point where it kind of lost its audience, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. And they had to literally do it. Well, they even called it a 2.0 release, right? When they did the update, they essentially re-released the game. I think probably one of the big issues is obviously it's CD Projekt Red, right? And these are the guys that did the Witcher series, and the Witcher series of games are like outstanding. They are universally loved by everybody. I think everyone owns Witcher 3 on probably about 7 different consoles or PCs in their house. It's one of those games that's literally, it's a bit like Skyrim. You don't know you own Skyrim, but you definitely do somewhere. And the same with Witcher 3. You definitely own Witcher 3 on something. you bought it somewhere along that, either in some sale somewhere, or you picked it up from something. And it was such a hyped up game that whether I don't know if they were rushed to a release day, or I also think actually one of the big problems was they tried to design it for too many platforms. So they tried to design a PS5, Xbox One X, Series X game, but also work on the previous generations of console. And then they sort of like, they didn't land either because they tried to go somewhere in the middle. So on the PS4, it ran terribly.
Yeah.
And on the PS5, it was full of bugs. And it's like, well, and I think if they had just aimed for, you know what, we're building a next generation game and we're going to focus on, it's not going to release on the PS4 and the Xbox One. It's going to release on the Series X and the PS5, and it's going to be all singing, all dancing. Probably they might have had a better landing. I must admit, on the PC, there wasn't as many issues. And that's because, frankly, with the PC, you can almost outpower your problems. So if it's a frame rate issue, you can just have a more beefier PC to run it, and you might not notice the issues as much. But I did notice when I ran it on, for instance, the PC I'm talking to you guys on now, on here it really struggled, even though this is quite a powerful machine. But on my proper gaming laptop that I've got, it ran perfectly fine. But going back to it a year later, I think it's actually a brilliant game. It's very, very good. They have fixed all of the problems. I think if you've got an old copy sat in your library on the PS4, chuck it in your PS5 and get the free upgrade. It's definitely worth it. You'll get the 2.0 upgrade. There's been an expansion pack for it as well. So there's a DLC with it's the actor who plays Luther.
Idris
Elba, yeah. which always reminds me, if you haven't seen it, go and watch there's a funny little YouTube video of Idris Elba being like a barista or something, and it's a comedy sketch of it, but it's a really funny thing to go and see. I'm Idris Elba. He goes and does every job possible. So yeah, I think the DLC's in there. I think the bug fixing is in there. It's got car combat now. And there's a bunch of other additions they've done to really fix up the game, and it is a massively open world. You can pretty much I'm not going to say it's Grand Theft Auto levels, but there is a very big open world. You can play your character how you want, and it is in that sort of cyberpunk world, so it's very, very cool. So I've played probably, I haven't finished it, but I've probably played 20 to 30 hours on it, and it's pretty darn good. What's your thoughts on it so far, Lee?
I'm loving it again. I did finish it on the PS4. I did go for it because I got it on release, and I think I paid £70 because I got like steel, whatever it is now. I can't remember, stickers and silly stuff with it. And I did finish it, but I finished it. I can't remember which one I did. If it was the like the cyber. There's like a cyber, you can pick what you want to do, what kind of area you want to be, if you're good at this or good at that. I can't remember which one I finished it on, but I'm back into it. It's just finding the time, because I think originally I put about 80 hours into the first on the PS4, and I think now I'm maybe 10 or 15 in, but I'm doing it more slow paced now.
Yeah,
I'm before I was kind of getting to it. I just want to take my time, enjoy it. Because I feel like we definitely missed that with the first release of it. So this is definitely doing it justice.
Yeah,
definitely.
It's funny, isn't it? The last week we spoke about Baldur's Gate 3, this week Cyberpunk, and these are games that are 60, 70, 80 hours long, and it is becoming a bit of a trend. Whilst they're great games, the amount of time you have to sink into them is pretty significant, which is harder and harder,
Just saying that, what's hilarious for me now is you could play Resident Evil 2 on the PlayStation 1 and finish it in 3 hours. You know, like it's mad. It is mad.
Yeah. But that is funny, actually. I hadn't really thought about it because when I actually want to play through, I want to play through Resident Evil 2 because on the PS1, that's probably my favourite game on the PS1. Definitely up there. I mean, if I thought about it, I'll probably think of some others as well. But I always think to myself, oh my God, that's such a big game. Like, I don't know if I've got the time to sit through it, but it's clearly not true. Because I guess once you know the sequence of items and where you've got to go, once you've played it enough, you probably can speedrun it in no time at all, can you? So
mad.
Yeah, kind of crazy. Excellent. Right. So my first topic of the day, I'm gonna deviate away from video game for a moment to talk about what I did last night. So last night, I went and saw Gladiator 2 at the cinema. What first thing I'll say is it's one of the first times I've been to the cinema where the cinema was actually busy. I couldn't believe it. We had a full row of seats with us, and it was like, well, goodness. And then looking around the cinema, there was a lot of people. Now, so I was really happy about that because in the last podcast I did say we should support our local cinemas, right? Because I don't want to see them disappear. Our one is constantly under threat of closure. It's not a great cinema. It's not fancy. It's not got IMAXs and reclining seats and all that jazz. It's a very simple cinema, but it would be a shame if it went, because if it went, we've got a good sort of half-hour drive to our sort of next decent cinema, right? So, but then the downside of this is I realised how noisy everyone is in the cinema. Like,
yes. Do you remember me talking about when I went to watch was it Godzilla X Kong, and I had an annoying woman and her kids in and out on their phones and stuff? Yeah, I know exactly what you're on about. People just cannot behave now, can they?
Yeah. So I was really happy to see a busy cinema, and then halfway through the movie, I was really annoyed that I was in a busy cinema. So I want people to be there, but just shut the hell up while you're there.
Yeah.
We had the classic someone tipping over their entire bucket of popcorn behind us. We had the rustling of packets throughout, the random conversations that happen that for some reason can't possibly wait till the end of the movie, the glare from mobile phones coming on where people are like doing messaging and stuff like this. And I'm like, oh, I miss the days when you just went to a movie, everyone was silent, and you watched the film through to the end. It was. But you know, good to see that lots of people there, because that means people are buying tickets, and that hopefully means the cinema remains open. But yeah, on to the movie. I assume neither of you have seen it yet.
I haven't seen it, but I did watch a stream the other night, Critical Drinkers stream, and they'd all watched it, and it kind of, listening to what they was saying, it kind of confirmed to me some of the fears I had. But I mean, we'll get to that when.
Yeah. I decided to go into this one completely I didn't watch any spoilers. I didn't watch, and I won't go into. Not that there's spoilers, because I think the movie trailer tells you what's going on in the movie. But I didn't watch any reviews. I didn't do anything. I just went in. You know, me and James, we watched Gladiator during the week. He hadn't seen. So James is my son. We watched Gladiator. We got the 4K version. Lee, I took a plunge and got the 4K version of Gladiator. So we watched it on the telly behind us, and he really, really enjoyed it. He said he loved the pacing of the film and loved the sort of the gravitas of it and the drama of it, and it was really, really good. So then we went into this and watched this one, and what I would say is my summary is I always grade things on would I watch it again, and this is one of those ones where I know Gladiator, if I put on Gladiator right now, I would sit here and watch it and be quite a happy guy. You know, it's just like sort of great throughout the film. This is one of those films where I'm like, I'm glad I've seen it once. I'm not sure I'd ever choose to watch it again. I wouldn't go to my movie library and go, oh, I'm going to watch Gladiator 2 because it's so good, compared to, say, something else. But it was okay. I think it's a good Gladiator movie. I'm not sure it's a good sequel to Gladiator, if you get what I mean. It's a good Roman Gladiator film, but I wouldn't say it's a great follow-up to Gladiator. There are some obviously connections there in the son Lucius, and where he goes and what he does. But again, pacing's really, really fast. I think we spoke about this on the last podcast. They don't give time for things to brew. They don't give time for things to feel real. The motivation is also not quite there. So, for instance, in the first movie, obviously Maximus works, in the Roman army. He's out there conquering, doing his thing. he gets betrayed, and you see his wife and child being killed, and in fact in a really horrible way, right? The son's running out to the Roman army thinking it's Maximus, thinking his dad's come home, and he gets run over by the horses, and then they do all sorts of horrible things to the pair of them, and by the time Maximus gets there, his family's been murdered, and his home's been burned and all the rest of it. In this movie, the motivation is Lucius and his wife are soldiers for the Numidian army, or protecting a Numidian city, and she's killed in combat. Like, she is a soldier, so she's killed in combat. And my view of that is, well, that's not really unjust, is it? She wasn't, unlike Maximus's family, her complete innocence, and are murdered by the Roman army. She's an archer in this army that the Romans come and conquer and defeat, and she's killed in combat. Which I think that comes with the territory, right? If you're going to be a soldier, you better be okay with being, potentially killed. So then he's then on a revenge. So similar to Maximus, he's on a revenge journey. But the justification doesn't feel the same. Like, she wasn't killed innocently. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense, guys?
Makes perfect sense to me, because these are the things I heard the other night.
Okay.
I mean, I even heard that part of it that doesn't make sense is the fact that they've kind of copied Russell Crowe's storyline from the first film, but split it between him and Pedro Pascal.
Yes.
Yeah, which sounds like it doesn't work to me. So
so Pedro Pascal is basically Maximus in the general side of things. He's the general of the Roman army. He's doing the conquering. He is unhappy with the twin emperors and what they're doing to Rome, and he wants to free Rome and bring them back to the Senate. So that's that part of the story. And then then you've got Maximus, who's actually being like the Lucius side of the story, which is, my family's been killed, although it's his wife in battle, and I kind of don't think that's that bad. And he's now going on I want to go and kill the general. So obviously it all comes together. And then obviously you've got this kind of third individual in Denzel Washington.
Yeah.
No, is it Denzel Washington? It is, isn't it?
It's Denzel Washington.
Yeah, it's Denzel Washington, and he's playing the. Actually, I don't mind his role. I think his role was okay. I mean, he very rarely plays a bad role, right? He's a pretty good screen presence, and his role is all behind the scenes. So he's the sort of Roman movies often have the political backhandedness, the all that sort of going on, and he's making his way through the ranks by setting certain people up to then take power in Rome, and he does it through obviously bribery, corruption, all these things. So that kind of works. I do think there's lots of points in the film where I don't believe the Roman Empire or Roman generals or Caesars wouldn't just kill people. So there's lots of times where, for instance, Lucius fires an arrow, the classic one where, in the first movie, he sort of throws his sword and says, "Oh, you're not entertained," and all this sort of stuff. Well, he kind of does the same thing. He fires an arrow trying to kill Denzel Washington, and it hits in between the two emperors. And they all just look at him as if like, "Oh, why'd you do that?" Like, I can't believe, and if that was for real, he wouldn't just be instantly killed. It would just be like, "You've just tried to shoot and you've nearly killed one of the emperors. We're going to crucify you in the next 5 minutes." But he just seems to get away with it. And there's random bits of that happen where you get taken out of the film a little bit because you're like, that wouldn't have been the case. Like he would have been killed here. Like the whole ending of the movie, Lucius manages to get on a horse, ride past the entire Praetorian army, who still believe he's a slave and a gladiator. He rides past them all, thousands of soldiers, to go and meet up with the other army outside the city. And you're like, what? No one took a shot at him. No one took a swing at him. No one tried to stop him. They just allowed him to ride out of Rome. Okay. I mean, from a movie point of view, that looks great, but the reality is that would never have happened. So, I don't want to dig out the movie too much because obviously it is a gladiator movie. It does a lot of spectacle. There is some stuff in the spectacles that I think probably aren't true either. I think I've read that the flooding of the Colosseum was possible, to have boats in the Colosseum.
They did do that, yes.
Yeah,
they did do that.
I'm not sure they had great white sharks though. So
no, but I heard. I'm sure I heard somewhere that something like hippos or something like that, maybe.
Yeah.
instead.
So my issue is going too far. Like I think it's fantastic if they were able to do that. Then that's again a nod to the Roman genius of being able to do some of these things, like build the Colosseum in the first place, and then to be able to flood it so they can have boat combat in there. I think it's fantastic. But then they added great white sharks, and I'm like, how even me and James went, how do they get the great white sharks back out again when they drain the place? So these things just flap about on the floor, just like
Yeah. Well, it's a Ridley Scott film.
Oh,
isn't it?
you're
I
on
mean,
mute, Chef. We can't hear you, buddy. We can't hear you.
still
Oh,
can't
we've
hear
lost
him.
Chef. Chef, we've lost you, mate. We've lost you. You've broken your mic. But yeah, it was. We're waiting while Chef fixes his mic. But
Hello.
yeah, we got you now, mate. We got you
I
now.
was saying, why are you worried about how the sharks are getting out? Enjoy the movie.
Yeah, but come on, like, Ridley Scott, it wouldn't be a Ridley Scott movie, especially
Yeah.
these days if it weren't ridiculous somewhere.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. So look, the way I summarised it, it was a good, and I have to I can't say great, I can't say excellent, I'll say good. That sort of 6 out of 10, a Roman gladiator movie, but not the Gladiator sequel that I would have wanted, you know. And I'm glad we saw it, and I recommend people go and see it because it has got some good stuff in it. It's nice to see some of the people back. It's nice to see they pay tribute to Maximus obviously throughout. They use him, they bring back actual scenes from the film, so that it's nice to see that. But I think it does miss the mark as a Gladiator sequel. But it's okay.
It should never have been a sequel, though. Let's be honest. I mean, the first film did not require a sequel. There shouldn't have been one, which is why I didn't go to watch it. Because if I'm honest, I think I knew it'd be awful.
Yeah.
So
and they don't really tie up the ending. So they actually do have a scene which carries on directly from the end of the film, where they carry Maximus out, and the what's his name? He's dead on the floor anyway. And the mother immediately runs Lucius to a gate and says, people are going to try and take power now. I need to get you to safety. And that's how he ends up leaving Rome as a small child. But I also don't believe that, because I think at the end of that movie, there wasn't the plan to give the Rome back to the Senate, and the people are all up for it, and they've just seen the emperor killed by Maximus. They're all cheering for Maximus. That was like the happy ending. And surely the ending of that movie would have been the Senate retaking control, and Maximus's army returning to protect Rome, and all this sort of stuff. And it seems to be just on a flip go, oh no, these two new emperors have come along. These twin emperors have come along, and they've taken power. It's like, well, where were they? They were not even. It's just a bit strange, but they seem to, again, sometimes you're missing the bit in the middle, like we've said about the Aliens movies and stuff like that. Like, we wanted to see the one before the one we got in Romulus, what happened before that. And I think in this one you've missed what happened in between this one and the next one, because how did these twin emperors come to be? How did they, where did they come from?
I think we do need to be careful here, Martin, because I do think at this point you probably are giving a little bit too much away on this.
Oh my goodness!
Because
I don't think so.
Anyone else, but I don't think I need to watch this film.
I've seen it there. I've seen it, Martin. Oh, sorry.
Oh no! Well, never mind. Cool. Let's jump into our next one then, because we have used a lot of time today. Lee, I'm going to come back to you for. I think you've got a couple of other topics.
Which one, me or Chef?
Oh, sorry. I always call you Lee, and I call Chef. So
right,
we should
me.
try and.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about a fan film that's on YouTube called Unification. Did both of you watch that in the end?
We did indeed. Yeah.
Yeah. So the reason I wanted to mention it was because, I mean, I'm a big Star Trek fan as well as a Star Wars fan, and used to know, as well as anyone who watches my channel will know, that I've been very unhappy with the current direction of both of those franchises. We won't go into the reasons why, but they've been terrible. But it was a little glimmer of light when Picard season 3 came out, because it was done by Terry Matalas, someone who's clearly a fan of Star Trek, someone who'd worked on previous Trek, the Trek that I like. And so he kind of, I suppose, proverbially put two fingers up to the man and said, no, I'm going to do proper Trek. And he brought out a great series. you can watch season 3 of Picard and completely ignore the first 2 terrible series that came before it. And Unification, it seems like somebody's kind of done exactly the same thing. So I'm not going to go into the exactly everything that went on because it's only 7 minutes. But in a nutshell, they've used AI and some deep fake CGI, etc. And they've recreated Kirk from Generations, because that's the uniform he's wearing. And they've recreated Spock from the new films, the Kurtzman Trek films, right? And we've got the, how can I put this? We've got the ending that we should have always got from these original characters. You know, a lot of us weren't happy with the way Kirk was done dirty in Generations, were we? Let's be honest.
No.
Like, he died a hero, but let's be honest, that's not how we saw Kirk going out, was it?
No.
You know, like, he should have died on the bridge of the Enterprise. That's how that should have ended, right? At the very least, he should have died surrounded by his crew. You know, and if you took the crew away, you would at least expect him to die with Spock, right?
Mm.
They both go out together, best mates, you know? And I think Unifications give us that. Like, I'll be honest, I watched it and I felt quite emotional watching it because it suddenly felt like someone was actually listening to us original Trekkies and giving us what we wanted. You know, someone actually had paid attention and gone, look, this is what they always wanted. I'm doing this. And what cemented my thoughts on that was, like I said earlier on, I watch Critical Drinker quite a bit because I find his points of view on things pretty much match my own. So whenever I watch something, if I feel a certain way, I'll always watch to see if he's done a review and see how he feels about it. And I think I shared that video with you too as well, didn't I? And I don't know if you watched it, but
Yep.
You hear his voice at the end. He gets emotional at the end. You hear it. So at that point, it was like, right, I wasn't wrong here. Like, there's something very special about this. Just a side note here. You do have some original cast members in there. For example, you've got Savick. I forget the name of the actor that played her, but that's the same actor that played her in Search for Spock.
Hmm.
And I don't know if you also noticed there's a Vulcan standing next to her. That's taken from a deleted scene from A Voyage Home where you find out that Savick is pregnant by Spock, because in Search for Spock, when he's regenerating, he's going through Pon farr, isn't he?
Mm.
And you know that something's gone on between them, but you don't actually see it. Originally, you was meant to actually find out in A Voyage Home that she's pregnant. So I'm guessing they're saying in that this is Spock's son, because I don't know if you noticed the look that Kirk gives when he sees him. So anyway, I'm not going to go too much. I don't want to spoil it too much. But the last thing I want to say is that Kirk was played by Sam Witwer. Now, do you recognise Sam Witwer, the name?
Like I do, but I don't, if I'm honest.
Well, he kind of was involved with the other side of a franchise, Star Wars, and he played Starkiller.
Oh,
Yeah. So, and I don't know if you noticed, but he's got like Shatner stroke Kirk's mannerisms down to a T.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, this has been very big, and William Shatner's even watched it, and he was amazed with it too. So, which was really good, because I don't know if you noticed, like Shatner's been kind of pushed to the side by current Trek.
yep.
And it's like, it always annoys me, because it's like, look, if it weren't for that man, you wouldn't have a Trek to be messing around with in the first place. Like, that guy, he deserves the respect he should get.
Yeah.
And anyway, I'll get on my soapbox a bit, because it really does annoy me. I like William Shatner. I grew up watching him, and them films are epic, and it really annoys me the way they treat him.
Yeah.
So it was good to see that for once someone put him first, and then they obviously, like I say, they interviewed him, recorded him while he was watching it, and it was great. It was like, finally someone is now giving him the respect he deserves and should have always got. Anyway, what's your thoughts, guys?
Yeah, Chef.
Yeah, I watched it, and at first, like just being soppy for a minute, I was like, "There's no sound. Is something wrong with my video?" Like, I couldn't. Obviously, there's no talking. I thought it was great. It looks so professional in terms of it, like it was made by Paramount, or like it was just, and it's been put out there. I thought it was great. You know, can I just say this? Are you allowed to be a fan of Star Trek and Star Wars, Lee? Is that allowed? No, I'm joking. But yeah, no, 100%. I would say it's finished off the ending we all would wanted. I mean, when I watched, I mentioned to you when I watched the newer Star Treks, and when Spock died, I said to you, we should have got Kirk in it, and you were like, well, no, because his remains are in. And I was just like, well, they've managed to do this and do that. They should have pushed it out there to do it, because I think that really would have finished it off. Obviously, then we lost Leonard after not long after the movie anyway. So I thought it was great, and I hope everyone takes it for what it is, rather than someone complaining and saying, "Oh, why do they have to?" Well, they had to, because other people feel this way, like yourself, and even for me. So I thought it was great, and it kind of come out of nowhere in terms I didn't know about it until you said about it.
Yeah, I just want to add, actually, one of the things you said there. Have you noticed that it doesn't really explain what's going on? It leaves the interpretation to the person watching, right?
Exactly.
But there is also,
because I was like, I watched it, I was like, there's no sound. I just imagined, because it's such an iconic thing we're going to see, there'll be some sound. But then it was just, but then you kind of took it, like you said, you saw things and you're like, okay.
Well, I mean, one of the things that I think I misunderstood it slightly at the beginning, right? Because I actually thought, I don't know if you remember in Generations, there's a throwaway line where Guinan, who's played by Whoopi Goldberg,
yep,
she turns around and says about how when you go into the Nexus and then when you leave, a part of you's still in there, right?
Yes.
So I assumed that this was Kirk because he's in the Generations uniform,
yep,
in the Nexus, right? That's what I assumed. But then you see a character who's brought up in Star Trek Discovery. Now, I stopped watching Discovery because it was awful, but I know about this character, right? So this character is a character that can jump between dimensions, right? And you're meant to think that this character has jumped between the Prime timeline, which is Kirk, Picard, all that lot's timeline, and the Kelvin timeline, which is the rubbish Kurtzman Trek, right? He can jump between. So when I watched it the second time and then I spotted him, I was like, oh, hang on a minute. Are we now meant to think that he's took Kirk to the Kelvin timeline, right? Because I don't know if you noticed that there's a bit at the beginning of this unification, and it shows a bit from Picard season 3. When they're on the Daystrom station, there's a screen behind one of them, and it basically shows Kirk's remains. They've recovered his remains from Viridian 3, which was where Picard buried him in that rock pile, right?
Yeah.
So they've got the remains on that station. So at that point, it's then like, right, okay, so have they revived him in Picard's timeline? And then this guy has took him to the Kelvin timeline just as Spock's passing away.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like, but it doesn't tell you. It leaves you to work it out for yourself. And even then, I could be way off, but that's what I got from it in the end. But it was clever the way they managed to mould all of the franchises together. Isn't it amazing how they've done this? But these idiots that work for the studios couldn't do this. It's amazing, isn't it?
Well, I guess that's what the technology is going to allow people to do, isn't it? Like proper fan-made. Now, people have an issue with it gives fan service. Well, that's kind of the point, isn't it? Like that's what fan service isn't a negative. Fan service is what the fans want. Like, exactly. and these are people now that have the tools at hand to be able to create real fan enthusiastic stuff. Like you say there was no talking. It was down to you as the fan to interpret what you wanted from it. And that's probably why everyone kind of loves it because they might have a slightly different take on it, but that's okay because that's their version of what they see when they watch it. So it didn't need talking, it didn't need explanation. It was down to you to interpret. And but I imagine that, again, play the clock forward 2, 3, 4, 5 years time. I think fan-made stuff will just become more and more mainstream because people will be able to churn out an episode of Star Wars, an episode of Star Trek, a Batman movie, and all these sorts of things. So they'll be able to do it. It'll always probably be a little bit janky, but I don't think we care. I don't think as fans we care. We care about, has it told a great story and are there great characters? I can deal with some of the graphic maybe not looking right or some little bits and pieces like that, but I like a great story. And this is what we might be getting. And I love the fact that you mentioned there that William Shatner has seen it, and they've kind of.
I didn't know that. I need to watch that if that's a video.
Can I just add, right? He didn't just watch it; he sat on the bridge of the Enterprise and watched it.
Oh,
I'm not even joking. When I watched it, I got chills. I was like, "Geez, no way!"
Yeah,
like talk about an epic way of watching it.
Yeah, that's really cool, isn't it? Like that, and I mean, to go right back to what you said, the best bit of Trek I've seen for a long time was that Picard season 3. That was fantastic. That was like they've brought it all back together again. They've brought the gang back together again. They're all on a bridge. It's a bit what everyone wanted with Star Wars, right? They wanted a moment where Luke, Han, Leia were all together doing something together, and you never got it. Well, with Picard season 3, you got those moments. You got they're all there. They're on the bridge. They're doing their thing. They're taking down the bad guy, and it was like it's such a great homage to the whole Next Generation piece with Picard. I love that. That was really, really good.
Do you know what made Picard season 3 so good also was that he didn't just bring all the Next Generation crew in. He brought in Deep Space Nine and a bit of Voyager too.
Yeah.
He managed to get all of them together, because, I'm not going to, actually, it's been out ages. I can mention a little bit, but, obviously you've got the remnants of the Dominion that are, the shapeshifters and that. And so he's managed to sort of pull in all these different aspects, and then even past characters, where you've got Ensign Rose. She comes back, doesn't she? I don't know if you remember in Generation, she's the one who goes off and joins the Maquis, which of course was another storyline that ended in Deep Space Nine, and and so on and so forth. But then you got 7 and 9, obviously from Voyager, etc. That's a guy that knew his Trek, and it's because he'd worked on it. So yeah. I think we are starting to see a tide now. I think, let's be honest, right? There's a lot more of us that feel this way than there are people who don't. And sooner or later, it's got to win out, isn't it? If you want to keep these franchises going, you've got to give the fans what they want. And if you don't, we'll go elsewhere and we'll find it there.
Surely the only way you can have a franchise is to have fans. So if you don't have fans, you don't have a franchise.
Well, what does fans stand for? Fanatical.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So,
okay, Chef, what was your next topic?
We're gonna go way back. Well, we're gonna go way back to Laserdiscs.
Let's go.
Gosh, I've literally I've got a Laserdisc player, and I've been going back and buying Laserdiscs here and there, and I managed to get some really good ones recently in the Punisher, the Dolph Lundgren one, Blue Thunder, and a couple others. Anyway, I'm just going back through it, and I mentioned it before. It's a system. It's a piece of tech, I should say, that I never had myself back in the day. My uncle had one. We used to go there. He used to be like the flashy uncle, had the nice cars, had this, everything was new, and he still is today, bless him. And to see a disc, a 12-inch CD disc being played was just something out of Blade Runner, just unreal. And yeah, so now in 2024, watching them, and I mentioned this earlier to Martin, the shine's not really there, but I think the biggest problem is making sure you find the correct TV to watch these on, because using a newer TV, it does look very hazy. But again, it's nostalgia. Well, I say nostalgia. It's something that I wanted or I'd like to be involved in, and I just think it's great tech that was maybe too advanced. Too advanced. I don't know. It just looks cool either way, and it's something that I'm trying not to get too much into, but it's kind of bit me in my backside, and I think I'm gonna end up buying more than I should do. But just want to know what you guys think, because I know we're all 70s, 80s kids sort of thing. So it was around in the late 70s, in the 80s and whatnot, and to the 90s, and where you guys stand with it.
Yeah. I don't mind jumping. I mean, certainly for me, it was rich people's tech, right? I mean, I didn't grow up in a rich family, but anywhere close to that. So, we went from VHS to, by the time we went to DVD, it was me buying it. That's the difference. Like I'd bought the first DVD player and stuff like that in our house. So it was always VHS. But I can remember seeing like people with Laserdisc and just being absolutely, like you say, the size of when you see a Laserdisc and it's just a giant CD, it just looks so cool.
Yeah.
It looks like it's from a sci-fi movie or something. It looks like it's like, and you just think, oh my God, it must be amazing. It must be so cool to play those things. So from a desire point of view, they are right up there. But I don't actually know probably what the average cost of a Laserdisc player was back in the mid-90s. It was it's mid-90s tech, right? Is it midnight or was it early 90s?
The one of them come out in 79.
Yeah.
Wow.
79.
Yeah.
Because Leonard Nimoy was actually in the video for it. Another
Bloody hell.
acquaintance of ours shared that video, and Lee knows what I'm talking about. So yeah, it was. But I've only ever seen Pioneer. I know there are other ones that do it, but Pioneer are massive into it, and they have been for so long. I think I've seen Gold Star, which may even be a branch of Pioneer. I'm not even quite sure, but there's other companies. But yeah, it's 70s tech that seemed to go on. I don't know what the last film was. I'd have to Google it, but I know, like, for example, Aliens 3, Men in Black 2. It goes.
Independence Day was on there.
Yeah, so it must be. I think the oldest. Hang on. The oldest, but the newest film, if that makes sense, I think might be. I've got is Snake Eyes, which come out in '96 with Nicolas Cage. It might even be. I might even have something older than that. But I couldn't tell you exactly. But
had a good 20-year span almost.
Yeah,
I mean, I was not aware of that. Wow.
Yeah, it's great. Like I said, that's why it's mad, because it's been around for so long, but it's not made a big impact over these shores.
Yeah.
But there is PAL. But I've got PAL movies and I've got NTSC movies. So it must have been big somewhere in Europe, where I couldn't tell you.
I do remember seeing it in American movies, like American Homes and stuff. I think because there are definitely films out there where they'd be at home and they would be putting a Laserdisc film on and stuff now. Because you'd always see American in movies of around the 80s and 90s. American Homes were always amazing, right?
Yeah.
Huge basements, huge TVs, huge houses, and huge stereo systems. I bet the McAllister house had a Laserdisc player.
100%. Yeah, two of them.
I actually know someone who had one. So a mate of mine's dad, and he weren't by any means like rich, but he liked his films, so he was quite quick to adopt one of these. I think he got his early 90s, I want to say. When did Independence Day come out? What year was that?
93, 94?
Somewhere like that, wasn't it? Yeah. I remember basically he had like one of the early sort of like Dolby surround sound setups hooked up to it. And I remember he put Independence down, and this was when they were costing, I think, about 300 quid a film, something like that.
Wow.
Because I think then you had to get them in from Japan, I think, if I remember right. And I remember him putting Independence Day on. Now I'd already seen it at the cinema, so I knew what it sounded like. But my God, I remember like the rumble as the ships are coming over the cities. And I'm sitting there thinking, wow, this is like sitting in a cinema. Like, it was amazing. But yeah, I thought it's funny that you used the term earlier on about taking the shine off. It's like, take the shine off. You got like 12-inch CD. Like, you couldn't get any shinier, could you? Like, let's be honest. The only thing that was a bit annoying I found with them is you had to flip the disc halfway through.
So, the one I have, the Pioneer system I have, I don't know how to explain. It flips them, but it doesn't flip the CD. It flips the lens. Because
Right.
when people are like, "What do you mean it flips? Doesn't flip the CD?" Well, no, obviously not.
There was a time when I used to think that was what happened, Leo. In my brain, it was like, oh my god, the rotation, the amount of space it would need inside the device to rotate the disc over. Like,
Why is my laser
that's
display the size of a washing machine? Why is it this big?
Yeah.
It flips. So my one flips the lens. So I'm assuming that's what it does. It flips the.
Or has two lenses, maybe.
Or it has two lenses, one on each side, probably.
That's spoiled my dream. I thought it was flipping the lens. Now you yeah, that probably makes more sense actually. But you the one I have, it flips, or whatever it does. It plays both lenses. Sorry, I keep saying flips. Oh god, that's destroyed me.
The thing is, there were DVDs that you had to flip at once.
Yeah, there were. Yeah.
I remember I had Stephen King's It. You used to have to flip that halfway through, and Goodfellas as well.
I had
I think Heat, the original release of Heat, you had to flip because do you remember DVDs that came in like the card? They had like the black flip bit, and they were like a card case. They were like the very first DVDs. They were some of the first, and some of those you had to flip halfway through. I think Heat might have been one of them.
I had VCDs. I think they're VCDs. Like it's a film on two
discs.
Or three discs. Yeah,
I had some of them. Yeah.
That was just before DVD, but very early. Because what is interesting is Laserdisc. Obviously, I'm saying obviously, must have been better quality than VHS at that time. When you think in terms of how DVD is now, because we all think in this country it's VHS DVD, whereas America is, I'm assuming, would be VHS, Laserdisc, VCD, DVD. You know, that kind of that pattern. So, I've heard people say that the Blade Runner on the Laserdisc is the best one to watch because it's the most closest to the cinema. And I mean, I haven't got Blade Runner yet, but I think it's finding. I was saying the right setup. So finding, you know, in my little head, I need to find a Pioneer TV now to kind of. I don't have to, but in my head, I think I have to get a Pioneer TV to kind of get the best out of the Laserdisc player. Because on a modern TV, on a SCART, it just looks a bit blurry, not blurry, hazy. But then on a Bang & Olufsen, when I used to watch them, it was spot on. It was really nice. It looked good, but you know.
Yeah.
I think that's back from when people used to have like real like audiophile type stuff. They would have like the projector connected to the Laserdisc player with the surround, the big speaker platform. Like people would go all in on a home theater. You know, that's what they used to call it, didn't they? But I don't think so much now. Most people nowadays have like a bloody great big telly and then like a sound bar or something. You know, you might have a subwoofer with it, but some people might just have a sound bar as their setup. I don't know many people now that have unless they have a cinema room or a movie room or something. Most people just have big telly, sound bar, job done. Compared to back in the day.
Or a Hobby Lodge,
right? It's 5.1 surround sound in here, my friend. You know, it's all good in here.
Yeah, you want 5.1 Dolby. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, but yeah, so I'm looking forward. I would definitely, if one was to come up, and I could get my hands on one, I'd get it from just that point of view. Like, I think it's one of the things I think we all like about this hobby that we're in is being able to own the things we could never own before. You know, like when I talk about things like the Neo Geo and seeing that in like the markets and stuff, and thinking, oh my god, how can people possibly pay £600 for a game and all this sort of stuff? And of course now you can do this stuff much cheaper. So yeah, the fact that you said you don't have actual nostalgia for the Laserdisc, apart from that, it was the allure of it. Like I can now get to own one of those, and I can hold this futuristic giant CD in my hand and play it.
I feel super fancy in a 4K world now. Let's just say like that.
Yeah.
Oh, you said about 4K world there. Can I just add something? You just triggered my brain on something I found out yesterday, so I want to share it. Was you aware that some of these 4K films that we're getting re-brought out, you know, like re-releases of films, Was you aware that not all of them are actually 4K? Did you know that? Some
No.
of them are upscaled. So there's a lot, and there's a lot of them, right? Now, the reason I'm mentioning this, there's a database where you can find out. And the reason I'm saying this is because if you got a choice between buying an HDMI film, Blu-ray, or a 4K, and the difference is about 12 to 20 quid in price, then you can look at this database and it will tell you then which one to get. Because I don't know about you, but if I don't have to pay £25 for a 4K film and I can pay maybe 8 quid for it on Blu-ray, and it's the same quality, then I know where I'm getting it. Like, so, but yeah, there is a database. What I'll do though, I'll at the end, I'll bring it up and I'll let you know what the database is so people can check it out for themselves.
Yeah, what I always tend to do is anything we discuss, I will stick links in the description of wherever you're currently listening to this podcast. There should be links below to pretty much all the bits and pieces we've talked about. So I'll make sure to grab it off you and put it in there.
Okay. Yeah.
So my next topic, and I'm gonna so we can get through them a little bit quicker. I'm gonna push them together, squish the two things together. So video gaming for me this month has been playing card games. So I've been getting back into things like Magic the Gathering Arena and Hearthstone, which is a Blizzard game. Blizzard are currently, I don't know if you guys know Blizzard, but they are the people behind things like World of Warcraft, Warcraft 3, StarCraft, all those sorts of games. And they've got their 30-year anniversary at the moment, so they're doing a big promotion on all of their games. I've been a World of Warcraft player for 20 years, believe it or not. It's the 20th anniversary of World of Warcraft. And I've been playing it since release, definitely in different levels over the years. But in going back to look at some of those games, I've been drawn back into playing, card games. I don't know if you guys have ever played any sort of, what they call living card games and things like that. But yeah, Magic the Gathering is a really good, it's actually a really good game, and it's also a physical game, so you can play it, actually go out and buy cards and play. The problem with that is you end up with a massive collection of cards in your house that you have to keep buying more packs and stuff. Where if you play it digitally, obviously your collection is digital and you haven't got to worry about keeping the collection and the rest of it. So I've been playing that, but also Hearthstone as well, because Hearthstone is a bit more easy entry, I would say. You don't have to have as many rules and understand the game as much. But yeah, I don't know if you guys have got any. Have you played any kind of card games before? Been into anything like that on computers?
Go on, Chef. Go on.
Not really. I'm just trying to think. Maybe on the Mega Drive when I played Dungeons and Dragons, some of them ones. I'm not sure. Magic and the Gathering.
Yeah,
but I'm not 100% sure, to be honest, Martin. Nothing recent, anyway.
I'll be honest. For me, I find it a bit odd to play card games on a computer, a console. I think it's weird. Like, I'll just be honest. Like for me, I very rarely get like this with things, as you guys know. I can normally see both sides of things, but I think when it comes to a card game, I'm like, no, it's a card game. You're meant to hold cards. Like, no, because Connor does a thing on FIFA. I know I'm going off a bit of a tangent here, but Connor does a thing on FIFA where he gets like digital cards, and I'm like,
yeah,
what's that? What's the point in that? Like, what do you want a digital card for? Like, go and buy cards from a shop.
Yeah.
Like, what is this rubbish? Like, so. And they release them, I think, each week, don't they, or something like that. It's very strange, anyway. But I'll be honest. From what I can remember, I think the only card games I've really ever played that probably similar to what you're kind of saying is probably Top Trumps, if I'm honest. And other than that, it'd be things like Uno and old-fashioned cards, if you like. But I think Top Trumps is probably something that's fairly similar to what you're talking about here, because I suppose when you play these games, it's all about power and magic and all that sort of stuff, kind of similar to when you play Top Trumps and you go, oh, the engine's 3,500 cc, blah blah blah. It's similar, really, isn't it?
Yes and no. I mean, yes, at a
Right.
simplistic level, you are comparing or trying to outdo your opponent with your cards. So yes, you could definitely see some similarity in it. Obviously, with like Magic the Gathering or Hearthstone, you're building a deck of cards that either being 30 or 60 cards, and in there you've got creatures, you've got abilities, and they're working combination with each other, so you're trying to build this kind of deck to beat your opponent in some way, either kill all of their creatures or kill their life. There's other games like you would have definitely heard of things like Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon and all this sort of stuff, so there are digital versions of that. But with the Hearthstone one, obviously because it's in the Blizzard world, all of the characters and things that are in there are all very familiar to me because they draw from the World of Warcraft, the Warcrafting games, the Diablos, the Starcrafts, all these things. So and it's all about sort of power creep as well. So you can obviously start the game off, you can only do very simple things, and the longer the game goes on, the more powerful your opponent becomes and you become, and you can do more things, more combos, and some of the games you can get into become very sort of just lots of trying to outdo your opponent with your deck of cards before you either run out of cards or run out of life, so yeah, I definitely I don't know if you've ever there's one that I think you would be interested in, and that's called Marvel Snap, given you're both big Marvel individuals, or certainly from a comic book point of view. If you haven't got it, it's on both mobile. I sound like I'm doing a shill here. I'm not sponsored. Not sponsored. But on both mobile. So
have you got a discount code, Martin? Is that why you're
I don't have a discount code. There isn't an affiliate link below or anything, apart from my OnlyFans again. I'll just bring up that. I got so many subs last week from my OnlyFans. I'm just going to bring up some more. But yeah, definitely check out Marvel Snap on both mobile and on PC if you've got it. I think you're quite like that, like where you do have all the superheroes, they have different powers, and you're trying to take older territories and hold them against your opponent. So yeah, it's a fun game, but just because I think because of the 30th anniversary this month, I've been playing those card games, and I've really sort of fallen back into enjoying playing Hearthstone. But there's so many out there that they're quite nice. It's a bit like playing poker or something like that, but with a different twist on it almost. Yeah.
Can I just add, what is it with games with stone in the name? Because you play Moonstone, and then you've got this Hearthstone, like.
That's true. There's quite maybe
a common name, right?
Maybe there is something in the stone. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah. And the bit was going to lead me on to, because obviously playing card games, you are kind of playing. You're playing yourself, but you're also playing an opponent. I didn't know if you guys knew that there are actually tabletop war games that are designed to play solo. So you play against yourself essentially. So you may have seen a little while ago, I actually did a video on Marvel Champions, which is a game you play against yourself. You pick a couple of heroes, you have an enemy, and you try and defeat that enemy with the card in the game mechanics that you play. But also on the table behind me now, I have a new game on there called Rangers of Shadowdeep. And you paint miniatures, you build your warband, and the book will guide you through adventures. So you sit at the table by yourself, and this was all come out of the back of COVID, by the way. During COVID, people couldn't get together to play war games and tabletop games. So a lot of the creators of games made solo rules. They made rules that would work, where you could sit down and play a game. So you can still do your wargaming, but people play against themselves. Go on, Lee, jump in, mate.
Can I just add something that's kind of ironic about this, right? We all grew up, right, just ourselves being into things. So probably at times did a lot of this stuff on our own then, right? But it wasn't good enough to bring out a game that one of us could play on our own then. No, we had to have COVID before that happened. Like, isn't it ironic? Like, for years we would have sat there playing games on our own, all them years. And only as we got older, we found like-minded people through things like YouTube, etc., right? And it took a pandemic for them to then turn around and go, oh, maybe we should make some of these games for people on their own. You know?
Yeah, there's definitely a truth in that. Obviously, tabletop wargaming is a very social thing, right? You've got to have an opponent in the room with you and play with them. You know, like that. That is kind of it, or multiple opponents. So you either go to a gaming club or a gaming shop, or be lucky enough to have a setup at home that people can come and play on. So it was a very social thing. So when that came along, lots of people didn't get to play the games that they've maybe painted thousands of miniatures for and done all the things they've done. So that's why a lot of the companies then brought out these kind of solo rules where there was almost an AI. The AI is the deck of cards. You know, if you turn over this card, it does this action. If you turn over this card, so they print off a bunch of rules, different ways for you to almost not have the opponent there and it be created and controlled by this AI essentially. But the AI is simply a deck of cards or a roll of a dice or whatever. So yeah, that's a game I'm going to be playing soon, and hopefully going to record some of it because I still think it's really great fun. Even though we often play video games on our own, right? If you're playing the latest Call of Duty campaign, you're playing that on your own. You know, Brett Chef, you're playing Cyberpunk, you're playing it on your own. So it's not
Indeed.
unusual. But I don't think people realise that there are tabletop games out there as well that you can do exactly the same. You can sit there, roll your dice, move your characters around, play the game, and you don't have to have that other person there to do it with. Of course, I think it's always better. It's always nicer to play with people, but it is possible to play solo tabletop games as well. So yeah, definitely worth checking out.
Do you know what I want to know? And I'm going to describe this for the listeners. What I want to know is where the giant is that dice over your shoulder belongs to.
What this one here?
He's got a big, massive, like Dungeons and Dragons style dice, and it's a light over his shoulder.
Don't say anything, Lee. It's part of the OnlyFans stuff. We can't discuss that.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
That's true.
Part of that. Sorry, I just had to step in for Martin.
It's the Hobby Lodge After Dark. You have to come and see.
Oh, stop it. Oh.
Oh dear. Yeah, brilliant. So I'm gonna come back to you, Lee. We're gonna sort of try and whistle stop through our last topics. I think you've got one and Chef's got one, and I think we'll be done.
Cool.
Yeah, I'll do my best because I'm going to gush over this because I love this. Like, you know what it is. You know what I'm going to say, right? So, I had a little bit of a rearrange around with some of my collection because I have got quite. Actually, like I said this to you guys, I think the other day. Like, I didn't quite realise quite how many films I actually own. Because I've got a couple of units full up with them, and I've got an ottoman. So you know you can't see most of it. So as a result, you don't really realise how many there are. And at this point, I mean, I'm only making a guess, but I'm probably looking at about 800 films, I'd say, give or take. So
Mad.
So I got basically I rearranged a few bits, and then so I got some of them out of the ottoman that I hadn't watched for a while. And this film was there, and I was like, I've got to put it on. I've not seen it for a few years. I need to watch it. And what is that film? Well, that film is the 1981 film Condorman. What a film, mate. Honestly, I watched it and I was like, do you know what? I still love this film because I loved it as a kid. It was, let's be honest, back then in the day when this came out, there was nothing like this around. You didn't have comic book style movies. And I mean, this literally is just that. It's about a comic book artist that actually ends up going on a sort of spy mission, but uses his ideas for his character from his comic in real life. So he effectively becomes Condorman. Like, it's amazing. Are some of the effects a little bit off? Yeah, they are. But I mean, if you can put that aside, I mean, a bit, for example, where they're in the speedboats and he's got a laser cannon on the back and he's shooting at them, you know, and you got the bad guy with. This is the bit that makes me laugh, right? This was a trait in the film that I picked up on, obviously years ago, not so much. Why is it the guy with the silver eye always has to take his patch off every time he talks? Have you noticed that? just to remind everyone, yes, I'm the guy with the silver eye. Like, it's stupid, but it's funny. Yeah, I should point out it's got Michael Crawford in it. Yes, that's right. That's the guy that played Frank Spencer. Yes. Who would have thought he'd ever be in a big film? And this was a Walt Disney film back when Disney actually produced good films, I should add. And there's various other well-known actors in it. Was it Oliver Reed's in it?
Oliver Reed's in it,
yeah. You know, there's a great cast. And for the most part, even Michael Crawford putting on his dodgy American accent, even that is serviceable. Like, it's not too bad. I've heard worse, you know. But yeah, just a great fun movie. You know, you can just turn your brain off, and there's even a bit of comedy in there too. Do you remember the bit where he drinks the drink and then he blows out a massive flame sort of thing afterwards? You know, it's just great. It's slapstick humor, and it's almost like somebody said, right, I want to do a funny comic book movie. How can I do this? And someone said, you know what? Watch Some Mothers Do Have 'Em. That guy would be perfect because he is basically, isn't he? He is basically Frank Spencer in a superhero costume. That is basically what you're getting in that film, isn't it? And yeah, I loved it. Like watching it again, it's that film needs to be released on Blu-ray or 4K. I hope that it doesn't die on DVD. I really do, because guys, I'm telling you, if you've not watched Condorman, watch it. He's, you know, don't get me wrong, it is a B-style movie, but it's just fun. It's fun. Anyway, guys, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely haven't seen it since I was a kid. So I will make an effort to go out and watch it again, Lee, because I probably can barely remember much about it, apart from, you know, his outfit and you know, his extendable wings and all this sort of stuff, and you know, and the car was an amazing looking car. So I will absolutely go, and hopefully anyone listening may go and give it a watch, because I know you've been gushing about it. So yeah, but again, great. I mean, obviously you've got Oliver. I mean, how did you get Oliver Reed into the film? I don't know, but they got Oliver Reed in there. So
yeah,
the Disney money must have been okay back then, and. But yeah, I just think a great fun family film, like you say, almost 10 years before we got the Batmans and all the rest of it, right? So it was nice to see comic book heroes on the screen as early as then. Yeah, I know, Chef. When was, I don't know, did you last see it when you were a kid?
Yeah, I literally, when Lee mentioned it before, I still need to buy it. I haven't watched it since my nan's.
Right, okay, Old Fire. Right, I'm going to make an agreement with you both now.
Okay.
I'm gonna buy you it for Christmas on DVD, both of you. Okay, that'll be my gift to you, because you need to watch this film.
I want to watch it. Like I've tried to watch it on my TV. I couldn't find it to online watch it as such. But I want to watch it again, because I used to watch it with my nan, because my nan loved Frank Spencer.
Yeah.
And Phantom of the Opera, obviously, as well, which is another conversation, but nothing to do with me, but with my nan, bless her, God rest her. So I do remember it, because like Lee said, and like you might have said, it was something that was comic based, you know, and we didn't have loads back then. I mean, we had Spider-Man, the early
Superman as well.
Yeah, we had that.
That was it, really.
And you had, you know, TV shows and that, but nothing else. But yeah, I do have fond memories of it, but from start to finish, I couldn't tell you word for word or bits, but I'd have to definitely go and watch it again, because yeah, go see Frank Spencer.
Yeah, I guess it was also an era of films like was Pink Panther around that sort of time as well? It must have been around.
Yeah,
then, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So it has that kind of feel to it, doesn't it? Like it's got the slapstick in there. It's got the you know, it is a light-hearted, trying to be a serious film, you know.
Yeah, God, Pink Panther I used to love as well, actually.
Oh yeah,
in there, Kato and all that. Yeah, awesome. But yeah, see, great stuff. Great, like
similar sort of thing as well, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's what I mean. Yeah.
I've just gone to actually purchase it for you two from Music Magpie, and they've sold out.
Oh well, clearly. I was going to say maybe it's the podcast, but where they would have to have come into. Yeah, that doesn't work like that, because this is recorded in the past.
Hacked into it, Mike, the launch, without you knowing.
Have no fear, I found it elsewhere.
Okay, yeah, we can't take any credit for driving attraction towards Condorman, because it's a bit too late for that. But anyway,
well, what I'm going to say is, if anyone's listening to this and think they're buying it, buy it quick, because there ain't many of them around by the looks of it. So,
right, Chef, I'm going to come to you for your last topic.
Yeah, we'll be quick. It's fine. So Lee earlier was talking about fan-made movies as such, and there's been one come out. It was teased about 2 weeks ago, and I teased it to you guys, and I've been sharing it and that, and it's Batman Beyond Year One. Or he's ordered it. Batman Beyond Year One, or Batman in the Future Year One, if you're from these territories. It's a cartoon that I love so much. It was around that time when I was, 15, 16. It was 96, 97, maybe 97, 98. It was around that time. I remember watching it, and there was not much on TV like that, which was a Neo Gotham, with still Kevin Conroy voicing an older Batman, with Ace, the dog, and we had Terry McGinnis, which was voiced by that gentleman who was in Boy Meets World. I can't think of his name, but I'm sure Lee's gonna say it maybe in a minute. He voices Terry McGinnis, and he's done many other voices since then of different cartoons. And we've now got a Batman fan-made year one short, if we say, where he dons the suit. Terry McGinnis is played by his surname's Potter, which is not Harry, but I can't remember his first name. He plays Beast Boy in Titans, the TV show. He plays Terry.
Oh, I recognised him. Yeah,
yeah, but I can't think of his. It's something
Yeah.
Potter. He plays Terry in this, and he can actually fight. He's ready for the role if they was to do something, and he dons the suit, and the suit looks a little bit off. But I'm not looking for exact perfect, because the cartoon was it looked a lot sleeker because it's a cartoon. And he fights the Royal Flash Gang, or part of the Royal Flash Gang, and meets a lady who you could possibly think is part of that gang. But regardless, it's a great 12, 15 minute long little intro to Batman Beyond, which I hope they do something with, because there was years talk about Keanu playing Terry McGinnis. There was years talking about Keaton coming back and playing an older Batman, which I think would be awesome. But yeah, so I was like Lee was, I was gushing. I've watched it 4 times. I just think it's great, because we don't have that Batman. We always seem to have the darker Batman, which is great. I've got nothing against it, but this is very colourful, very now, if you will, with the way things are with neons and bits and pieces, which wasn't in the films we've seen before of Batman. So yeah, I think it's great, and I hope they do more. And I don't know if you two have seen it, but I look forward to you giving your opinions, or even saying what you think of it now.
Lee, do you want to jump in?
I haven't actually had a chance to watch it yet, because of everything that's been going on recently. But
no, of course,
it's really annoying, because I really do want to watch it. Yeah, it's interesting, because and I think the guy you're on about the guy that voiced Kit.
No, not the old man. He plays the older brother, not that gentleman. I can't think of his bloody name, Lee. He's in Boy Meets World. He's like the older brother, or the older kid in it. There's one kid. There's another kid. I don't know his name. I'll have to look afterwards. I can't think of his name, but he voices Terry McGinnis.
I'll have a look in a minute. Yeah, I mean, this is me. I did watch the cartoon here and there, Batman Beyond, but I was always more of a Batman the animated series, which while I mentioned that's getting delivered today. You know what I'm going to be watching. So Black Friday deals, guys. Yeah, so it's kind of like the Batman version of Spider-Man 2099, isn't it? Really, where someone else has basically took over the mantle, isn't it? And what I always liked about Batman Beyond was the fact that Bruce Wayne's the mentor at this point.
Yeah,
I always thought that was really good, that they managed to keep a connection between the 2 different types of Batman. The other thing I kind of liked is the fact that he kind of flies as well in this, and yeah, like you say, the sleekness of the costume always made a lot of sense, because naturally technology gets better, right? So eventually, as time goes on, things get sleeker, more refined. I wouldn't say I was always a massive fan of the animation, though. I don't know if I was. I always preferred the animation style of the animated series over Batman Beyond. But yeah, no, I look forward to looking at it. It's going to be interesting. I mean, this is our first look at it in real time, isn't it? So yeah. There have been a lot of fan films done in the past that have been done really well. I mean, like we've put it out before on one of our comic streams, Chef, when we talked about Endgame, which is the one
Awesome.
where he's fighting Predator and then Xenomorphs turn up, you know?
Awesome.
Yeah. Is it the same guy?
I've not delved too much into who has made it as such, to be honest, Lee.
Right.
But I will do. But I'm just, like you said, I'm just glad we got something because it's been so long. And the drawings, you are right. The drawings, you can't put Cape Crusader. You can't put the animated series against Beyond. It's there's no there's no comparison. But I think they were going for that, trying to be completely different, which probably
which is
It's
commendable.
stylized different, isn't it? That's all. It's just a different
it's
style,
different,
isn't it?
but
Yeah.
What I always think is interesting, if it was like drawn like animated series, how it would have been taken, because I think that was a winning look. Let's be fair, but maybe that he doesn't. Maybe it didn't. Maybe didn't work. Maybe they did try. I don't know. I don't know. But I think it might have done better if it was drawn like the animated series. It'd be interesting to see if there's some fan art done like that. How it does look.
I think it's commendable that they did do it different, because one of the things we complain about the most these days, me especially, is the fact that they keep churning out the same old rubbish over and over.
Yeah.
Do something new. That's what we're always saying, right? So,
definitely. That's fair.
so it is commendable that they tried something different. I might not be a fan of the artwork, but I commend them for trying.
I think for me, this is probably one of those ones that falls slightly in the gap because, Chef, I think you're slightly younger than me.
You'd never guess, though.
So for me, like a bit what Lee was saying there, like the Batman animated series, fantastic, and would watch that. This actually, I just checked. This is like a 1998, 1999 animated series, right?
17,
so for me, I was more like turning 20 and stuff, and that's like I wasn't I was into other things, Chef. As you
I was too. Let me just clarify to the millions of people listening. I was as well, but Geek at heart.
So I actually definitely remember it, but don't have as fondness for you. So when I saw this, one, I think it'd be great because, like I say, I'd love to see different takes on Batman. I'm not a fan of the current one. I just find it a bit miserable. I know Batman's supposed to be dark, but I didn't think it'd be miserable. And it's kind of like that's the vibe I get from the current Batman. And what I'm really excited about, and I want it to happen, is Old Man Batman. I want to see Michael. You know what? I'd even take Ben Affleck as Old Man Batman because I think he's got the shape. Like if you look at the shape of him, like the wideness of Ben Affleck, I think he could do an Old Man Batman really well. So that's what I want. I love the mentoring side. I'd like to see a young Batman and have that mentor in Wayne Manor, showing him what to do and helping him. Like I liked the bit where he's fighting you call it the
Royal Flash gang. Sorry.
Yeah, and he's in his ear saying like, "Get out of here! It's a trap."
Who is that person? Because you need the text. It's not Batman. Anyway, never mind.
Yeah, but he knows where this is going, and he's like, I've been here, mate. I've and of course he's the cocky kid, so he's like, no, I'm gonna stay. I've got this, and he gets himself into all sorts of trouble. So, I'd be totally up for it because I'm desperate. Now that I've had a tease of Michael Keaton back as Batman in the Flash movie, I know he can do it. And I think he would make such a great Old Man Batman, and even would still be able to mix it up with people in that film. If let's say a new Joker broke into the Wayne Manor and mixed it up with this old Batman or something, I think it'd be a really great scene. So yeah, I thought the fan movie, and as we've seen, I mean, if you're to believe it or not, that's how Deadpool came about, right? Deadpool came about from a Ryan Reynolds Halloween kind of short that he did, and he sort of tried to get the movie made, and eventually it turned into what it's turned into. So who knows what can come of this, right? If people do good enough fan makes and there's enough backing behind it, there's enough interest and buzz, then people might pick it up. Who knows?
When you say Old Man Batman, do you mean like the for example, the storyline of the Dark Knight Returns? Is that what you're thinking?
Just if you're watching Batman Beyond, obviously Old Man Batman is Batman.
Oh, in
is
that
the mentor.
timeline, right?
Yeah,
'cause
yeah.
What I would have liked to have seen Ben Affleck do, because he's got the perfect build for it.
Yeah.
Would have been the Dark Knight Returns, like because he is a much bigger built, grizzled,
Yes.
lost his way a bit Batman. Like he's at a point where he's hyper violent at this point. And in fact, you saw signs of that in Batman versus Superman. They kind of nicked bits, didn't they, Lee? From
They did, yeah, they did. What I will say is what you've just said there, Lee, about Batman Dark Knight Returns. They're two awesome novels. I mean, if you've not read them, or even now, you can watch them, because obviously our Father in Heaven, RoboCop, Mr. Weller, does the voice for Batman, which was I think we're gonna have to go another 2 hours. I think the of Batman is awesome in those two movies. Like when you watch it, it's so cool, and it's in the future as well, isn't it? Where it's the punks and I think there's so much untapped Batman that they can do, but they won't do.
They always seem to just do the same thing with Batman over and over, don't they? There's so many stories that they could do that they haven't done, and that's one of them they should have definitely done. Like Ben Affleck literally looks just like him. He's got his build, because if you look at the artwork for that, Martin, I don't know if you have, he looks almost like square looking, because he's meant to be at a time where he's older and he's put weight on, you know.
Exactly.
But as a result, he's a powerhouse, isn't he? Like he literally demolishes people, like, you know.
We might have to pick Batman as a totally new topic for another time, I think, because it sounds like we could all go on. Certainly I could go on about it. But I guess the summary is it's a great, again, another fantastically done. Of course there's jankiness in it, Chef, you know, there's bits that don't quite work, but from a almost concepting the idea of a Batman Beyond movie, there's definitely legs there. I think it would do well. Let's see what comes in the future. Right, guys, I think I'm going to wrap us up. We've been going for an hour and 35 minutes, which is slightly longer than the last one. So, you know, our difficult second episode was definitely full of stuff. Anyway, I hope everyone's enjoyed listening. We will definitely be back for episode 3. I think we're really enjoying doing this. I think you guys have said many times this is kind of like a cool thing to do. So again, please give us some feedback below, whether you're on Spotify, YouTube, iTunes, wherever you're watching this. There's always an opportunity to give some feedback, either by the rating system or in the comments section. What do you want us to talk about? What do you like us talking about? Is the format the right kind of format? Any feedback, positive or negative, is always great, and we'll always listen to it, and we will always try and adapt to meet that. So I'm going to say goodbye and say thank you again to Lee and Chef, and we'll give everyone a pretend wave, because you have no idea that we're doing it, but we definitely are. For honesty's sake, we're waving, and we'll speak to you soon. All right,
I'm not.
Goodbye,
I'm
everybody.
Not
Lee's not waving, but I am. I'm waving, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye.